Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to create some funny pumpkin faces. So let's get started. Here are the materials that we will need for these pumpkin faces. Paper, a black crayon. I have some scraps of black and white paper, so just little pieces even. Watercolor paints, if you have them. If not, you can always create with whatever you have, crayons, markers, scissors, and a glue stick or some glue. So here's what we're going to do to create our very own pumpkin face. We're going to start with our black crayon, and we're going to hold our paper horizontal. I like to say like a window. So once you have your paper situated, we're going to find the center. So in order to find the center of your paper, we're going to fold the paper in half, just like this, and just give it a tiny little crease so that we can see the center line, and it's like an imaginary guide. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a dot on the folded line near the top of the paper. But I remember, I want to save room for my stem. So I'm going to leave 2 or 3 finger spaces and then make a dot right here. I'm also going to come all the way down to almost the bottom, and I'm going to make another dot right on that same imaginary fold. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and turn this into my stem. So I'm going to make a letter U right where my dot is, and that's going to be where my stem will sit. For now, I'm going to start by making a slightly curved line that goes from top to bottom, kind of like connect the dots. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, kind of making like an oval shape. Great. Now we're going to add some pumpkin sections on either side. So we're going to add another pumpkin section over here, just by kind of making a big letter C, and on the other side, kind of a backwards letter C. They don't even have to be even, because on a pumpkin, they probably wouldn't be either. And then we're gonna have another pumpkin section. See my pumpkin getting nice and round, and another pumpkin section over here. I think this looks pretty good. If you want to add some more sections, depending on how big you made your pumpkin, try to fill up your paper. You want a nice big surface so that we can add a really silly face. Now let's talk about the stem for a minute. We are going to create whatever kind of stem you want, but remember, the stem of your pumpkin is typically the vine, and once it gets twisted off the vine, it kind of makes sometimes unusual shapes. So I'm going to curve mine over to the side and even kind of make it a little lines on here as well, so that we have that texture. Okay, this looks great. Now I'm ready to add some color. Color, baby, color. So I have my watercolor paints, but remember, if you don't have watercolor paints, no problem. You can always use markers, use crayons, colored pencils, whatever you have. Watercolor paints are kind of fun because you can mix them. So what we're going to do here is mix a variety of shades and tints of orange. And we're going to do that by layering some colors. So on the color wheel, you would add red and yellow to make this secondary color orange. So I'm going to use that idea and start with yellow. We always start with our light color first, because that is going to make it easier for cleaning the brush. So I'm going to add some yellow right onto my paper. And you can see that it's soaking in quickly because these are water paints. So now I'm going to come back, clean my brush, and you can add a tiny bit of red right in there, and you're mixing your very own shade of orange. Now, of course, you probably might have some orange on your palette as well. And you can see this is dark, this is really light, because I didn't have as much red mix, and you only need a touch, just a little dot. You don't want to have a red pumpkin. And then I'm going to go back, clean my brush, and if you want to, as a mid-tone, you can just add some of that traditional orange that's already been mixed for you. So you can do it a couple of different ways. Remember, red and yellow, or you can go ahead and add some different tones right in there. So now my pumpkin is looking nice and orange. I'm going to paint the stem. Remember, I talked about how it was once the vine, once you pick it from that vine, it kind of ends up turning a bit brown. So that's a lot of water. So if you ever have that problem where you have a lot of water on your picture, if it doesn't get soaked up quick, you can always just dab it with a towel or a tissue, and that will help to absorb some of that extra. Okay, now it's time to add, I'm going to start thinking about my silly face. Now remember, our pumpkins can have lots of different types of silly faces. One example is this silly cat face that I created. So let me show you how I did some of these shapes. So to start with, I have some scraps of black and or white paper. So it will help to give your shapes a little bit of dynamic interest if you use colors that are really bold and kind of opposites. So I'm going to start with creating some circle shapes. So you can use a pencil or whatever you have to write with, and you can just create, you remember those shapes that we sometimes would trace as well. If you have like a marker cover or something to create your circles, you can go ahead, create your circles. And I'm using white because I know that I want to use a black center. So I have a circle eye for here, another circle eye. Remember, your eyes don't have to be circles. This is up to you to create your very own silly face. So I have some circles. I might even just make them the same by holding them together and cut around the edge one more time. Nice and big, you want those eyes. And now I'm going to think about my face. So I'm thinking I'd like to have a silly mouth. So a silly mouth is rather easy. You just take the straight line that's on your paper, if you have one, and you're just going to make a smile face. And then you just simply cut that line to create your smile. And if you, of course, want to give your pumpkin some funny teeth, you can add some paper as such, take a nice strip, cut, 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 just like when we were making the windows for our cityscape buildings. I'm going to do it again. If you want to have one more tooth on the bottom, it's up to you. Now I have my eyes. I need my pupils. I'm going to use some black paper for that. A little trick to making two at the same time is if you fold your paper and then cut while they're folded together. So I can end up with magic two eyes. Now I have two pupils. I can peel them apart. There we go. All right, so now I have my eyeballs, I have my mouth, and I can think about what shape I want to give my nose. I decided I wanted to make a cat face, so I gave it a triangle nose, but of course, you don't even have to. You can make whatever kind of nose you want. So here's a nose. There's all different shapes. You could put another circle nose. If you wanted to do a surprised mouth, you could always add a surprised looking mouth, and that will change the shape of your pumpkin's face just with a few different types of shapes. Here's a circle nose, circle mouth. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. I want to talk a little bit about the eyes before we glue them down. So here's my pumpkin. It's still drying, but you will get the idea. I'm going to arrange what could be my face right on top where I think it's going to go. So I have my eyes, and then I have my pupils. Now notice on my cat, I moved one eyeball up, and that made him look kind of silly. You can put them right in the middle. You can make your pumpkin looking down. You can make your pumpkin looking up. Oops, stay up there. Or you can make your pumpkin looking kind of silly, like I showed you before. So if you want your pumpkin to have a surprised mouth, oh, there you go. Just add your circle, and now my pumpkin looks surprised. If you want your pumpkin to have teeth and a mouth that's kind of wiggly, we can add our happy mouth and some wiggly teeth. It's up to you. You are in charge of your art. So once you have all of your pieces, you simply take your glue stick, glue everything down, and if you want, you can cut your pumpkin out and create your very own silly face pumpkin. I hope you enjoyed making this activity, and keep on creating.